All right, so one of the big projects I'm working on for Good Okay Bad is a personal top 500 graphic novels, comics, and manga of all time. These are, of course, going to be limited to those books that I've read, but my top 100 list has needed a replacement for at least 5 years or more. I've read a lot of books in that time, and a lot of stuff would be shifting around. And as I shifted things around, I realized that I felt bad for all the great books that would not be included if I had limited the list to mere 100 books. So I started work on a top 500 list, and as you can imagine, organizing that is pretty daunting. It would be one thing to simply pick 500 books and list them alphabetically or something like that, but I do want some sort of ranking in mind, and so I needed to come up with a method for sorting and organizing and re-ranking and resorting and re-ranking and whittling things down. So ideally what I would have would be some sort of physical system with a bunch of cards with pictures of all the books on them, and then I could just hand sort them relatively quickly. But I don't have space for that, and I don't have a way to keep my kids from destroying that, and also it would cost a little bit of money to put that together. So I looked for some online solutions or digital solutions for sorting, and what I've come up with is using Airtable. They have this sort of sortable card system, and I don't think it's ideally meant for what I'm using it for, but it works, and so that's what I'm using. I'll just show you kind of the process. I have about 200 books added so far, and so we'll just add the next 10 and we'll see how that goes. So I've got covers of the next 10 books here, and it doesn't really matter the size because I'm going to resize them in Photoshop. And so I open Photoshop up, and I've created an action. I call it 500 resize. I'm sure you care. Go to automate, batch, and I use the action to resize from that folder into a new folder, and click OK, and it takes those 10 book covers and turns them into these uniform size square images, 150 by 150. Now I take those from the directory and I drop them here. It says drop here to create a new record, and create 10 records or create one record. So I'm creating 10 records, and you can see they're all uploading there. And in the meantime, I'll come back here and I'll take all these and add them to my archive of ones I have added so far to help me keep a little bit track of what's going on. I'm sure I'll miss something along the way, but that's what I'm doing. And then I'll delete these out of the whatever folder that is. Okay, so now that I have these in, I can sort them. I can go, you know what, Sheriff of Babylon. That's actually way better than Eat More Comics. And BPRD's taken a little bit of hit in the last few volumes, so we'll change that up a little. Echo was, I'm not sure exactly. It's kind of all by feel. I don't have obviously I don't have any objective sort of set of standards. essentially what I'll do is I'll go, okay, so this comic, is that better than this comic? And I go, no, it's not. And then, is Sheriff of Babylon better than My Love Story? My Love Story was a lot funner to read than Sheriff of Babylon, but Sheriff of Babylon has its charms and a lot of interesting stuff going on. So for now, I'll leave those where they are. Eat More Comics, was it better than Theft? Since it's an anthology, hard to say. Some aspects of it are much better than Theft. Some aspects are a lot worse than Theft. So I'm okay with leaving those where they are for now. So I'll do side-by-side comparisons. I will jump a few and see, okay, Theft versus City in the Desert. Was City in the Desert better than Theft? Oh man, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is. And this is the thing about these lists, is books can be so close in my personal estimation over whether how good they are. Should this book be ranked 201 or 202 or 215? There's not going to be a lot of difference in value between book 200 and book 215, or even book 150 and book 200. These are all worthwhile books. They all have their charms, their benefits, their particular values, and so one shouldn't be too disappointed if they see Eat More Comics and go, oh, that was actually way better, I thought, than My Love Story. What an injustice that it should be ranked off like that. I wouldn't worry too much about that. We're just trying to gather a bunch of great books. Another thing I like to do is take a book from here and compare it to a book over here, because as I go, I'll notice that a group of books will be organized well, I think, and then suddenly down here I'll find a book in a section that I think is organized well, and that book is, in my estimation, better than something way up here. And so do I take the whole section and move it up? And in this kind of thing, it's hard to in this Airtable as it is, it's hard to visualize, and I tried to find out if Airtable had a native way to size these cards so that I could see more of them at a time. I don't believe they do, but if I hit Control and the minus sign, my browser will shrink everything down, and so I can see lots of cards at the same time, and that's just a native aspect of the browser. So I can see Happiness and Panther and go, wow, is Happiness better than Panther? I don't think it is, so I'll put it down here. I mean, I like reading it more, but Jar of Fools I recently reread, and I think it's probably off here, so I can zip that down. It's a good book. The dialogue's a little clunky, a little dated, but this is kind of my method for organizing books, and I'd have them done a lot faster if I had the cards prepped, but going online, downloading a cover of a book, dumping them into the thing, into a folder, and then running a batch in Photoshop, that's all tedious work, and I don't do particularly well with tedious work, and so this project has lingered a little bit longer than I'd like. I tend to every few days or so download another 10 covers and add them. But if my kids were just a little bit older, I could task them with doing it, but I can't really trust them to download the right covers yet. So that is in a nutshell how the process is going to go. I think I have 220 books added so far. My nomination list is currently at about 600 books, so I'm going to add 600 to this table and organize them and lop off the bottom 100, and I think with that we'll have a solid list of 500 books that you can be pretty satisfied are worth investigating, if not reading. Everyone's got their own tastes, of course, and so yeah, so that's how that's gonna go. And if this is your thing, then you probably enjoyed this look into how my particular version of best of lists come together. This is how I do the top 75 of the year list, how I did my top female creators list, except in those cases, since they were shorter lists, only 75 books, I just had the names in TextPad and just resorted them. I clicked and dragged them there, but it really does help to have the covers available to see and look at and drag and drop, just because that's what I'm like.